some of the words that I used to close the previous one, which are again, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. Thank you to Rabbi Iggy, to Rabbi Mark. I keep on saying wanting to say Rabbi Hariette because clearly she has demonstrated her spiritual leadership.
Just so you know, Iggy, put your hand on Hariette.
All right, we've got a big team. Yes. And to repeat one other thing that I was told that they impressed upon me privately in preparing for this afternoon for our official launch here, that they are not leaving. They are here through the evening. We're not going to let you miss your flights, but they're here early tomorrow morning if necessary for office hours, so to speak. A lot of folks have come and been able to engage the three of them in public conversation. It may be that through the course of this afternoon, things have come up that you would prefer to discuss with them privately. By all means, I hope that you have found their message to be demonstrating approachability. Likewise, I am not the only person within the FJMC who is a part of this conversation, but part of the reason why I have so embraced a role professionally on this is because of my own personal story. And I won't tell that entire personal story here, but the previous session was, how do you talk to your rabbi about this? Well, it may just be that this is part of your rabbi's story and they don't know how to talk about this. It may be that they want to be supportive, and it's just about finding the right opportunity for them to hand over the bima, so to speak. Part of the reason why I went to rabbinical school in general, and to the Ziegler School in particular, was because of a program that I may even be part officially of the Blaine Breslow Institute, of Beit T'Shuvah sending their residents out to talk about their stories. 20 years ago, this summer, I was in a college program at Camp Ramah in California. I was just telling a part of this story to Rabbi Mark last night, and we were studying Teshuvah in the Talmud, in Masechet Yoma. And we went from Ojai into Los Angeles one day, and we were at Beit T'Shuvah in order to teach this material. And it didn't take long for me or for any of my counterparts to learn. We weren't the ones teaching. We were very much co-learning with these folks who had much more to teach us about the true value of that material. It was in that session that I realized, to the great extent, that I had been in recovery for years, and I had just never learned that language. My grandmother, her brothers, my father, myself, had all battled with depression. Had all put on, as Rabbi Mark said in the keynote session, mental makeup, the sense of the demand for perfectionism, the sense of shame for not being that image that I thought was expected of me. No message from my parents that I must be X, Y, or Z. I don't know where it came from. I mean, I could tell you if we were in a therapy session where maybe it came from. More important was that I had gotten a message from my milieu, my home community, my home ecology, that I was expected to be something that I could never be. And it wasn't until I had been allowed into a space where imperfection is actually what is the perfectness of the human condition. That this is who we are. And the brokenness is an opportunity to seek wholeness. That wholeness does not exist on its own. That is part of our journey. That is part of our search. That is so much of the reason why we seek community, is because we're able to name how deeply broken this world is, how much it is in need of repair, And then to know when we find community, when we find spiritual leaders, when we find our brothers and sisters in this regard, to understand that our tradition has incredible wisdom. There is incredible merchandise that our tradition has to sell to us if we're willing to buy it. So I'm going to pause on that to ask of each of our featured speakers if they have final comments for the afternoon about how they wish for you to think about how to bring this home before they have volunteered to lead processing groups. I said, I can't ask you to do this. They said, Andy, we do this every day. We help people to process what they're going through and how to take this home. Because if you can't take it home, you'll never leave Beit T'Shuvah. Right? This is a temporary residential community. You got to go home at some point. All right? So that's the way that the next hour looks. And a lot of this, I'm going to need to make a few more copies, so I'm going to step out of the room very shortly.
I think we'll do it together. I think.
You want to do it?
Yeah, I think we'll do it together. I think that
Right.
sounds.
Yeah, so what we want to do is we want to engage with you. We have all the great ideas in the world. We'd love to hear your thoughts and what you think is important for you to bring back and what help we can be in. So we're here to help you think this through, not to necessarily give you the the global answer. Because as I said before, each community is different and unique. That's what makes us so good. So, the first question is, what issues raised today most spoke to you, and which issues do you want to explore further with other leaders in your synagogue community? Who would like to start that?
If you don't volunteer, he'll fall on you.
Yeah.
Obviously addressing the issue of, yes, there are those issues that we talk about exist within our community, and until we start talking about them, we can't begin to either help solve them or help provide support to those that are dealing with those issues.
Can you repeat the question for everybody's benefit?
Yeah, it's the first question.
Right, so there's a piece of paper.
Does everybody have this piece of paper?
Oh. So Andy's making no copies, but there's a piece of paper
Okay.
circulating around.
So I will repeat the question.
In the
What-
short term, share them with your neighbor.
Sure.
What issues raised today most spoke to you? And which of these issues do you want to explore further with other leaders in your synagogue community? Nobody ever told me I was too quiet. Happens.
Yeah.
The question I really got a lot out of your earlier discussion with you and I don't know how to determine what the need is in my community, and if that need is being, I don't know how to determine what the need is in my community. I hear a lot in the media about opioid addiction in particular these days, and about how it's a rampant problem. I don't know what the numbers are in my community, or what the resources are that may already be out there. I guess that would depend. That would determine a lot of what I think I may need to bring back to my community.
But what issue spoke to you personally?
For me personally, the fact that I think Judaism has a lot to offer people that are suffering and that are looking for some kind of recovery and meaning in their life.
I'd
I
like to
think
ask,
for me, it brought a lot of that too.
thank you. For a show of hands, actually, how many of you heard anything today that you personally identified with in terms of your own secrets or pain? So that's the issue that I resonate with, you know? That we need to create spaces for people to share their secrets and share their truth and connect with one another as broken human beings seeking wholeness, not in shame. That's my take on it.
I'm a great believer in our region system. We have a lot of regions. We have, I don't know, 16 or something, and people who are very active in them. And I guess to some extent, I feel as though most of us who are active in regions are dysfunctional one way or another. And I guess I'm wondering if our region, within our regions, we could be a community that would start, region by region, that could start to develop some sensitivity among ourselves, and then from that, bring it to clubs and such. I don't know how people feel about that.
When you look at things like the Torch Awards, where are those coming from? Those are coming from the individual clubs. Somebody had a great idea and it came to the region and maybe to the international level, but the point is, I think within our own individual communities is where you start things. I think that FGMC, region or international, can provide a framework perhaps to help get that going, but I don't know that you're going to see the innovation going at that level. Not knocking anybody at the region or national level, but that's the reality of things.
So this is a perfect example of something we teach at Beit T'Shuvah called the both and. You're right, and you're right.
So one of the things that came up in Iggy's breakout session downstairs that I've been thinking about a lot, try finding an AA meeting, an NA meeting, an Al-Anon meeting, an R-Anon meeting, any support group meeting at a synagogue. In Ohio, I don't believe there's a single one. And I haven't looked anywhere else. I go to a bunch of these meetings myself. I'm tired of going to basement churches. I'm tired of seeing crosses. I feel that we're probably alienating a huge percentage of the people that we could be reaching if we did it at a JCC or at a shul or at a day school or wherever, just somewhere that isn't a Christian organization. And that was one of my takeaways.
Yeah, I want to just say that I agree. I think that we've for too long farmed it out. And that's part of the Shonda issue. So I think one of the takeaways, having the shuls host AA meetings. Simple. And just so you all know, as you bring people in recovery into your shul, they become the best shul members you can have. Because we know how desperately we need community and connection and spirit. Just saying. Who else had their hand up?
I want to say something about that sort of to echo what Rabbi Andrew was saying, in the sense sort of that we constantly, of course, see this as a problem, right? If you read the New York Times, right, sort of like the opioid problem, the problem, the addicts, the homeless, the criminals. But in many ways, it is part of our tradition that when we embrace ourselves and embrace those who are, as the Hebrew says, avaryanim, right? We say a special prayer on Yom Kippur, right? To ask permission to pray with the avaryanim, to pray with those who are delinquent. It teaches us something about ourselves, right? There's no doubt that not only do they become the best synagogue congregation members, but their ability to inspire us to go through the brokenness is what makes us connect. And I can tell you a personal story that a while ago I was in my office and somebody came into Beit T'Shuvah, and he looked like the person that my grandmother warned me my whole life about. He was 6'5", an African American, and just came back from prison, 2 charges of murder, right? And all I could see was his own humanity and his own fear in his eyes, and we had this long conversation. And in that moment, I had more in touch with him and more connections with him than I had with people who grew up exactly like me, who look exactly like me. That is, I also want for us, and I keep doing this all day long, to stop with the they language, the otherness. I've been at the other side of otherness my whole life. I'm constantly being called other, all the time. Right? Even at the airport yesterday, right? What are you doing here? Blah blah. I'm here at a conference. What's conference? We're talking to a rabbi, whatever. And she's like, oh, well, you can't be a rabbi. You have tattoos. And I'm like, like even then I have to explain myself. Right? Go try and have a real meaningful halachic conversation with a border security person. But the point is, I'm comfortable in that situation now, but the point is that I really urge us, and that's one of the things we can take home, I really urge us to stop saying they, stop saying them, right? And start saying more us.
We refer to Beit T'Shuvah as Jews with tattoos, you know?
Right, so one of the things along with that is that there are no others, there's another. If each of us are human, and if to know God you have to hone your sense of the human, then everybody is just another, or we celebrate. Each person is another human being, and we have more in common than we have dissimilar.
So I'm thinking about how these programs will kind of resonate with our clubs, resonate with the folks in our region, and in some ways I feel like the way we act as a region and even as an organization is opposite of a lot of the things that you're talking about, and I'll explain how. That we talked about hosting AA meetings, for example, and a lot of our club activities revolve around drinking. And you talk about welcoming the other, and yet our very name is exclusive, that we're the men's club. We're separating ourselves out from the sisterhood, from the rest of the congregation. We're the men's club as being an exclusive group from each other. And I'm trying to figure out, do some mental gymnastics here of, given where we're starting from, does it make us hypocritical? And even just makes it very difficult for us to market ourselves as being inclusive and welcoming to those who are different if we're starting from such a faraway place.
Can I just...
That's a good point. We're not one thing. When we constantly say hypocritical, it means that somehow we're expected to always make the same decisions.
Hello?
Or, no, always make the same decisions and always be consistent. That is, we are multiple things. And for us, we said before, we believe in Beit T'Shuvah in a both-and perspective rather than a binary perspective. We believe in our ability to actually bring closer together the two pieces of ourselves that are not always, right, seem to be close to each other. That is to say that, yes, there is an exclusivity element, but without the awareness of that exclusivity and the responsibility of that exclusivity, then you get lost. If you're able to take that exclusivity and transform it into something else, to invite others, right? So maybe you can't affect the entire congregation about talking about addiction, but maybe within that group you can. You can lean into that.
Yeah, I think that one of the things I would just like to suggest about that is that we used to do men's study and women's study at Beit T'Shuvah because the issues are different. So I don't think that it's so much exclusive as it is recognizing that there's things going on for men that are different than things going on for women, and vice versa. Now, I do want to say that I thought it was hilarious during lunch that there was an announcement about us doing our program on addiction and recovery, and then the next announcement was about the bourbon tasting. Oh no, the next announcement was about gambling, the poker game.
Poker night on Friday, that was
Right.
the first thing, right?
And then
there was Bourbon Club.
And then there was the
Bourbon Club.
the
Bourbon Club. The Bourbon tasting.
And
There was
then
the Kiddush Club.
and then the Kiddush Club.
Wait, and then it was the last one. We thank our sponsor of the cannabis.
Right, right. And then so the three of us were just cracking up.
But you know what? I would just like to respond to what you said, because I think you're even questioning incongruence says something that you heard here today, that you're saying, are we hypocritical? I think it's incongruent, and we all are. That is a universal. None of us walk our talk 100% of the time, because that's not possible. But knowing where you don't, I think is possible.
The other thing about this is a program that is being generated by us, but it is not just for us. This is something we are to get into the entire community. So within our own organizations, we can be looking at how hearing men's voices ties in with this. But with regard to what you were asking with regard to about the men's club, one of from my shul, one of our sisterhood leaders is here with her husband, and she was in here with this whole thing, and she's talking to me about how do we take this whole thing back and make it work for the shul. That's the whole point. It's an FJMC program, but that doesn't mean it's just for men. It's our job to get it out to the entire community. Just as K-Roof was an FJMC program, but it wasn't for men, it was for the entire community.
Okay, so anybody else on that first question?
Issues that you heard that
Issues that you heard? Hold on. I'm coming. Hold on. I know, it might be recording.
For those of us, part of what I heard was that we as a community need to learn how to accept and admit where we are. And that helps get over the shame. Because once you accept it, you can talk about it. But it's like, if anyone's ever been to an NA or meeting, you introduce with your name and you're an addict. So if you accept the problem, you can address it. You're acknowledging it. And part of it is for the community to address.
And that's what giving your name is so important. Dr. Steve was sharing with the previous group that sort of, in what synagogue do they have was it Park Avenue? Where they put the addiction in the newsletter? Central Synagogue. In the Central Synagogue, right, that it's enough when the rabbi said in the Misha Berach, those who suffer from addiction, just that is enough for people to come up to him later and say like, oh, thank you for including that. Or people coming to that synagogue to be part of the Misha Berach because he's the rabbi who says, and also bless those who are, suffering through addiction. So just the word itself is a beginning, right? The acknowledging. And it's sometimes, again, it could be very small. It doesn't always have to be a big program. But starting small, starting to put the drop in is where it starts.
Right. Okay, question number 2. What challenges might you face in bringing this...
Start the conversation.
Right. What challenges might you face in bringing this conversation home, and how might these challenges become opportunities for you and another? Yes, sir.
Yes.
Thanks very much. In my shul, before or this was even a topic, a person individually had come forward to the shul leadership and had said, I'm facing issues personally with my family. Can we start a group? And had started very informally, not through the brotherhood, not through the sisterhood, but just on her own, and without much help. A group for people to come in and discuss what their issues were. It didn't go very well because nobody had any training. We had so there were no professionals involved. This individual met well. Don't get anyone wrong, but had no clue what she was doing. Doesn't have the same sort of personality. So when it comes to having somebody who's facilitating this, like, I think that would be an issue that we would face is that we're not you.
So I think that's a good point, pardon me, I'm sorry. And I think that's where it becomes, the challenge becomes an opportunity for the rabbi and the leadership and whatever the Jewish Family Service or whatever the organizations are, and or even just somebody in the community who's a therapist. I mean, in most Jewish communities, you probably can find a therapist. Just say.
And a chance to reach out.
Right.
Right, chance to reach out, Facebook, whatever, friends, other communities, other synagogues around. Do you have people in that? And right, and again, that also promotes the idea so you're not alone in this.
So just to comment, a few weeks ago, Heidi and I went on the NAMI walk, which has the NAMI walk all around the country. And there were probably 20 different tables, which included a bipolar support group. There were tables that were part of a borderline personality group. And there were other people who have internet startups or internet groups that have thousands of people as members, and they said to me, would you like us to come to your synagogue or your community and we can help facilitate a program?
Great. Yes, sir. Come help.
Well, there's two things strike me. One, I'm in a small community, so I doubt, certainly within Jews, if we're avoiding trying to be universal, but just in the Jewish community, I don't know if you'd have enough for any individual addictive disorder or personality crisis issue to form a whole support group just for that. I think, and I can speak of this also personally, I'm probably not the only person here, I would say it openly. I have spent some time in a 12-step program. And I actually, I listened to the whole list of promotions going up. None of them were my issue, but yeah, it was a little interesting. The other thing is, my rabbi does work with counseling and support. She has a share and care group. The image that strikes me, and again, maybe I'm being a little harsh, is that the people who show up for that and work for her, and I love her very much, are people coming from not traditional male images. And I'm talking about the images we're raised to express and portray of dealing with our problems. And she's dealing with people very much more on a condition of people who are afraid of things around them and often express that fear very easily. You can tell these people who these people are. And I love some of them too, some highly intelligent people. But the image of fear is very clear on them. And I think that what our organization might be better at, and again, this might be done working with specialists, but through an HMV program, would be some kind of confidential where, okay, within this club, we're going to have probably several people who have one issue or another. Maybe someone, doesn't drink anymore, and now we know why. Maybe someone, again, has, we'll stay away from the poker tournament or whatever else, or at one point had a problem with substances of one kind or other, prescribed or otherwise. And I think that this is probably a field, and I don't know if I wish, certainly I don't know if it's been done before, if it has been done, but I'm going to go talk to Gary Cates about it, as that it would be the field for doing some kind of H&B work to try and narrow the focus, see where there is a need within the Jewish male community, and then to bring in specialists to help to make sure that we're not, doing our amateur treatment and screwing people up even further than they already are.
I'm coming. I'm on. The good thing about doing this is it warms me up a little bit.
It's not warm, it's nice. You agree.
Harry is freezing.
So I think that what we're hearing is the challenge. We are not the people who are going to treat the people. We are a conduit to making it acceptable, to making it welcoming for people who face challenges either themselves or in their families or in their friends, to provide resources for them. So our goal is to find those resources and to help bring this out and bring this to the congregation and say there are people around us who are suffering, and we can help them. And we can make sure that they feel welcome in our institutions. We can make sure they feel welcome around our tables. And we can understand when someone says, I can't volunteer today, or I can't do that. They may be home with a child, or a wife, or a husband. So I think our role, just like it was with K-Room, was to bring this to the attention of the community, help work with the community to provide those resources and deliver those resources. So our challenge is not one to say, you're not the expert. I think the other part of our challenge is rabbis. Rabbis, and I'll exclude our friends in the room right today, are very busy people. I mean, they're doing funerals and bar mitzvahs.
Busy too.
No, but you're busy. This is your work. And there's so much on their plates. They're going to look at it and go, this is just one more thing. Oh, sure, yeah, I'll do it one Shabbat. And this is not just a one Shabbat program. This is an ongoing way of saying to people, there's a door that's open in our congregation to come to. And again, if the rabbi can't treat them, which he shouldn't do, he can find them the resources, but then provide the support that's necessary.
100%. And by the way, do you know that there is no National Recovery Shabbat? There's some synagogues who do recovery Shabbats, 100%, but there is no. There's National X, Y, and Z Shabbat. But that's one of the things we could start with.
Okay, let's start it. Yeah?
Rabbis can't treat, perhaps, but they can create communities of welcome and acceptance where people will come.
Absolutely.
So just quickly, if you look, JAMI, which is in England, has a JAMI mental health Shabbat every year.
Great.
If you look, JAMI has a...
Right. So I think that part of what's being said is really important. You all are the conduit. You're the ones who can come back to the congregation and say, we learned about this, we know that everybody knows this is happening, and we want to do something about it. That's really what we're trying to get happen here. We can provide all the resources to all the stakeholders in your community, and we can help them figure out the resources that are local, etc. The real thing is, the purpose of this is for you all to go back and say, both to your lay leadership and your rabbinic leadership, and to the rest of your members. We know this problem exists. We're here to be part of the solution. That we want to start this conversation. We don't want anybody to hide or feel bad, because we're not going to shame you or ostracize you or think less of you, because those are the issues. When I stand up and say, my name's Mark and I'm an alcoholic and criminal in recovery with a pure soul, and there's people who just walk out. So I think that really this initiative is about How are you gonna bring it back and start this conversation and be the conduit that says everybody matters and everybody's included? That really is, I think, the key. And if you'll do that, then all the other challenges, you know, then the challenges are getting somebody to listen, you know, leaders to listen. But evidently you guys know how to do that because you've been doing it for a long time. So let's go to 3. Who's your home team, right? Who are you going to enlist as partners on the next steps?
I'll suggest that we are, number one. We are both at Beit T'Shuvah and at the T'Shuvah Center. We are tons of resources, whether it is through the immersion program or the EBI program or Freedom Song or all the different programs we'll do there in New York. We are. So we have a whole array of programs and people to answer the calls and help direct sort of what we are. You know, we've been doing this for quite some time, and so, you know, also our emails, Rabbi Andy has our emails, and if you ever want to talk more or ask more, we're definitely available for that. So you can count us on your home team, even though we're not in your hometown.
Right. So how many of you feel like you could go to your rabbi and get your rabbi on board? Okay. How many of you believe that your lay leadership would support this initiative? Okay, so you got your home team.
Start with the lay leadership. I would say start with the lay leadership, but I would say start with the lay leadership because sometimes if the rabbi puts a kibosh on you suggesting it, your men's club suggesting it, you're dead in the water. Versus if you deal with the lay leadership and they come and they say, collectively, we think this is a great thing to talk about, he's going to be much less inclined. Personal example, we had a rabbi that took 13 and a half months to decide that women could be counted in the minyan. And the reason was, he knew 13 and a half months. The reason was, and the reason that he gave, well, the reason was shalom bayit. And when I'm saying shalom bayit, you can do anything on shalom bayit. Wife wants to cheat, shalom bayit. You know, and so I said, but he knew that the congregation, the leadership was in favor of counting women, and so it was much more difficult for him to say no, and he finally said yes.
Right, so here's the other thing I'll tell you.
Support counting women.
If you go to, any of you go to your rabbi and he puts a kibosh on it, call me. Because I'll call the
rabbi. The word is rabbi.
Right, I'll call the
rabbi. No, but I would say if
the uninformed up and have a conversation. Hold on, there's somebody back here.
I was saying, if a rabbi does put the kibosh, ask yourself why.
I disagree with the statement about going to the lay leadership. First, I think you've got a better chance of getting your rabbi to buy into it and then convince and having him supporting you with the lay leadership. I really think it depends on the congregation.
Right. It's a both and. It could be both or either.
So there's something that I want everybody to understand. I know that Rabbi Heidi did it in his session. I think you did Yochanan, right?
We talked a little bit about Yochanan. We didn't do the whole text.
Okay, so in the Talmud, here, let's do it just quick. Maybe.
I can start.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Oh, you wanted the sheet. Okay.
My grandfather told me that even if you know things by heart, you should always have the sheet and the siddur, otherwise it's religious vanity.
I agree. I learned the same thing about the siddur.
Right.
Yep.
Rabbi Chia bar Abba was ill. Rabbi Yochanan went to visit him. He asked him, "Are these afflictions dear to you?" He said to him, Rabbi Chiya bar Abba, neither them nor their reward. Rabbi Yochanan then said to him, give me your hand. Rabbi Chiya bar Abba gave him his hand, and Rabbi Yochanan revived him.
So, when you go to your rabbis and your lay leadership, you can cite this. It's from Brachot, chapter 1. Look at this question that Rabbi Yochanan asks. Is your suffering dear to you? Actually, sufferings, right? Afflictions.
Yeah.
Are these afflictions dear to you? What an amazing statement from 2,000 years ago. The Talmud, Rabbi Yochanan knew that sometimes we fall in love with our afflictions.
That's the answer. When he says neither them nor their reward, he's aware that there's a reward. They give you something.
And there's a reward for shuls staying quiet about these issues. They don't have to face them, and they don't have to look at themselves. So, when you're going with the best that we have in our tradition, which is our tradition. To say, what do you mean you're not going to go along with this initiative? This is a Jewish issue. And the biggest issue for all of us is we are not going to allow someone to die because we want to save our face, or we don't want to deal with life and the problems as it is.
What do they say in AA about saving face?
Yeah, AA, they say you can save your face or you can save your ass, but you can't save both of them at the same time. So I think that this is an important part of this going back to the community, this home team. So you're going to have your lay leaders, you're going to have each other, and I think the most important thing you have is you have our tradition. You have Judaism as part of your home team. And all the rest of the things, I mean, FJMC is putting together a program that's great. We're going to be involved. Iggy's going to be involved. If somebody's in the southwest of the United States, we're a phone call or maybe a drive away. Iggy's going to be available for the, for the New York region. And in between, we'll figure it out. You know what I mean? Zoom, Skype, scholar in residence, whatever. I mean, we're also available to come speak in your shuls to open up the conversation. It's part of the Elaine Breslow Institute. It's part of what Iggy's doing with the T'Shuvah Center. So you've got a lot of people on your home teams. And I know that we're going over our time right now. So are there any final comments, thoughts, questions? Otherwise, we can continue the conversation, over dinner or whatever.
Sort of real quickly, the FJMC, we're going to celebrate 90 years, has made a difference.
Amen.
Steve Heidi Mandel make a difference when they came to us and said, enough's enough, we're going to do something about this. The people on the rabbis and Hariette make a difference every day to the people that they deal with. The guys running around in these crazy yellow shirts make a difference because they make sure these things can get funded along the way. Gary Smith, well, I think he may have left already, made a difference, and certainly with Gary and Bruce Tomar coming together to work out this program with Rabbi Andy. Now it's your turn to make a difference. It's just not us standing around here, it's all of you going back to your clubs, your regions, and making this program come true, because you're going to be saving lives. This is really saving lives. So I thank you on behalf of the leadership of the FJMC. I don't see Stan in the room, so I'll do it.
Thank you.
We thank you for coming and doing this, and we pledge to support your efforts, and we hope that you'll support our efforts. And Heidi and Steve and Bruce and Gary and Lance Candle, we thank you for what you've done, but your work is only beginning, as is Rabbi Andy's.
So because this is my last opportunity, our last opportunity, I again want to say, it started with Rabbi Andy, and then it went to Creighton. Creighton's not here, right? And he was a big help in thinking through the programming, and Bruce, and the Mandels, and everybody, okay? So we are so grateful and so actually lifted up by the attendance, by the dedication, and by the reception that you have to this issue, to these issues, and to us. And we are forever grateful. Now I'm going to leave it with Dr. Mandel for the last word.
Well, definitely from my better half, Heidi, say something about what you're going to
going to hand out a way of using writing to express healing for people. Everybody in my group found it very helpful and therapeutic, and it was beginning for them to confront what issues they wanted to heal with, whether it was mental health issues or addiction issues or violence and trauma issues and loss.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.